Daughters of Liberty. The year was 1764, and Great Britain had just come out of the grueling French and Indian War, victorious. England had gained more land from the French and became the dominant power over France, Spain, and Portugal. But they were also dealt with a hefty fine. England needed money, so they decided that the colonists would have to pay their share on imported goods through increased taxation. The Sugar, Stamp, and Townshend Acts during the 1760s and early 1770s forced colonists to pay taxes on molasses, newspapers, books, glass, tea, and many other goods being shipped to the colonies. The colonists, upset with these unlawful taxes, began to boycott, and a future war between England and the colonies began to erupt. The Daughters of Liberty became a successful group of women that joined the support to condemn British goods. They proved that women could be more than subservient maids to their husbands by joining men in the fight against England, whether they were writing letters, feeding the troops, or serving in the war. Both privileged and women of less prominent class or minority groups played critical roles in the revolution. Women practiced all sorts of economies as they spurned a wide variety of British goods. Women produced and wore homespun clothing instead of buying and using imported cloth. At home, women boycotted British goods, sewed uniforms, and raised funds for the Continental Army. On the front line, women spied on the enemy and nursed the wounded. In Philadelphia, New York, and Boston, they published newspapers and rallied in the streets. On the frontier, armed with pitchforks and shovels, they helped defend cabins and forts. Tea became the focus of boycotts in the early 1770s when the British instituted new regulations designed to undercut the colonials' illegal importation of non-British tea. Some women substituted herbal teas and coffee and engaged in collective efforts to encourage other women to do the same. Women were also shopkeepers, bakers, midwives, and farmers. Abigail Adams debated ideas about women's rights and wrote hundreds of letters to revolutionary leaders. Mercy Otis Warren was a prolific letter writer, writing patriotic public plays and poems that ridiculed the British. Esther Reed, an Englishwoman who recently arrived in the colonies, organized a women's relief organization that raised money for the struggling rebel army. Deborah Sampson, unhappy with her life as a Massachusetts servant girl, disguised herself as a man and served as a continental soldier. By walking her own path, she helped change society's ideas about what women could endure and accomplish. Phyllis Wheatley did the same. Her talents led her to become a celebrated poet whose accomplishments challenged commonly held views about black and female inferiority. The press applauded women for their effort, sacrifice, and dedication to the fight against British taxes and the war, with articles in the North and South attributing to women's role in making the tea boycott successful. The South Carolina Gazette reported that in Charleston, eminent women engaged in a promise to reject and totally renounce the baneful herb and proposed to exert themselves in defense of those rights which God and nature has bestowed on us. Before the American Revolution, women were devoted to their families without any chance to express their opinions or reach the status of their husbands. They were considered only as wives, mothers, householders, and could not speak their opinions in public or during conversations between men. Through women creating the Daughters of Liberty, they became a voice in the Constitutional Congress and were one of the main factors of why the colonies were able to boycott the British. Daughters of Liberty would homespun, created their own tea by boiling leaves and substituted sugar also. They really stood by their men and helped them as much as possible during the war. After the revolution, many women were able to go to school and get an education. Although it would take 100 years for women to earn the right to vote, women could now be one step closer to being equal to men.